Welcome and hi, I'm Dawn with K-Squared Technologies. Welcome to our monthly webinar training series. Today's session is on managing projects and tasks using Microsoft 365 applications. I want you to consider for a moment, how are you currently managing your important tasks and projects? Are you using the best tools? Let's explore your options in Microsoft 365. This may provide you with insights to other or even better tools to be able to work with the wide range of tasks and projects that we're looking at every day. Your choices include Planner, List, To Do, Task and Teams, and Task in Outlook. A lot of this has to do with whether we're focused on something that is more group or team-based or personal. For team and project management, consider looking at Planner and List. So these all have strengths in terms of how you might want to manage or track a project. For individual or personal tasks, and these could be tasks for people within your team that are specifically accountable or responsible for specific parts of a project. Your options include To Do, Task in Teams, and Task in Outlook. And as part of the, we'll say, Microsoft 365 ecosystem, these integrate then often very well together. So we're going to look at that as well. Now, each of these applications is available from your Microsoft login. So let's begin our exploration. First of all, right now I am logged into my office.com or my Microsoft Office login. And from there, from this interface, I can look at what sometimes is referred to my waffle. This is my app launcher. So this is in the upper left-hand corner where we see that grid. And here we can see many of the Microsoft 365 applications that are available to us. We can also, for applications we may not see in this list, we can go to All Apps, and then you can see an even more extensive list. And it's just as a reminder, if you have comments or questions about anything that we look at today, feel free to drop those into chat or into the Q&A portion in Zoom. So from these apps, here we'll explore a number of these, and I'm going to start off first with Planner. So Planner is an easy to use, it's team-based project management tool. And since it's built into the Microsoft 365 groups, you can look at Outlook groups, Microsoft Teams, and even Yammer communities. These are all different ways for you to track your open task without having a formal project management tool. Now, certainly in some industries and for some types of projects, you might need something much more robust, such as Microsoft Projects or other tools. But Planner is a little bit more informal and maybe just the solution that works for you. So let's first of all look here at the Planner hub at the left-hand side. And this is then where we can see available plans. Currently, I'm looking at recent plans. I could see all plans, and we'll see that some of these might be plans that you actually create through Microsoft Teams. So we're going to explore then those Microsoft these applications as they also apply or can be run through Teams, because Teams is an excellent portal if it's something that you're working with all the time. So here we have some plans that have been created. Now, I don't have to be the person who created them, but I'm a member of that plan. And they might have been created directly through this app or through the Planner app through Microsoft Teams. Let's go ahead and then look at one of these, which is an event plan. And notice as well that you can favorite those plans that maybe you are more directly responsible for. So with this, I'll go into the event plan just so you can see the idea of this. So Planner uses what's called a Kanban boards. So these are things that we can see in other types of project management tools. And with these boards, we can then create or look at these as in different kinds of buckets. And we can see, for instance, these were created like to do, presentation, press, venue, and we could continue then across as well to see others. And within these different elements of the plan, we could also chart out our progress. That is, which tasks have been completed, which might be late, which are in progress, which are upcoming here, and even see these in a schedule. So let's go back to our boards. Additionally, we can view who are members of this plan. That is, who are the people that have access to this? And so these either could be members that we have invited in creating from this app, or they might be, if the plan was created in a Teams channel, then these would be members of that particular team. And so we can see many of them represented here, and then we can see more detail for the members there. So I can always add additional people to this plan. But right now, this is presenting for us then a way to organize the different elements of a project. And so for this particular event, then we already have organized and have some different options. And I'll show you how to create these as well. But let's see, for instance, here, Megan, she is part of this on deck review. And I could select this to see this in more detail. And so, for instance, you can see that the bucket is presentation. So just think of that as a way to categorize it. This progress is something that any of the team members can make changes to, and even priorities. So here we can share attachments, put in messages, we can make other updates to it. We can add labels to these. Now these labels start off as 1, 2, 3, but then they can be further modified and you can label these. So whatever makes sense in terms of how can you organize them. So for instance, by creating a label, then you are able to then sort or filter on those as well. And so let's say, for instance, I want to assign a label here. Now, in this case, that label 6, that doesn't really mean a whole lot there. So I could then select that, and maybe I want this to be my presentation assets or anything along those lines. So I've just simply have labeled this and I've made some other changes to that. So those are the kinds of things that we can review or look at, and we can even, of course, change the people that might be part of that. So this is one particular option there as well. Let's say I want to add another task to this, these different buckets. Right now it's the presentation. So I'll add a task, and that task will be to draft the main deck. I can set a due date, And let's say that that is tomorrow. Who am I going to assign it to? Okay. So in this case, I'm going to assign it to myself, Megan, but I could add other people to this as well. And then this becomes then a task that I can add. And as we saw before, I could add other things to that, such as labels or other members, and make other changes to it. So the members that are part of this plan are people that can view and also can edit. Let's look at some other plans as well for this. Oh, and by the way, over here on the right-hand side, these are, as I mentioned, that we would be able to have the ability to filter. So with this, then I could say, well, what are the, which tasks are late, for instance? That might be one possibility. Or what is due this week? That might be something else that I want to look at. And so in this case, I'll clear that. But I could also notice here group by bucket. I could also see who it's assigned to. So we might see that we have overwhelmingly assigned them to just a few key people, and maybe we need to shift some of those responsibilities as well, or by due date and other options. So you can see that there's a lot of different possibilities in terms of how we can view this information as well. And that's the flexibility of the Planner app. Let's go ahead back to our Planner hub here for just a moment. And I'll show you that here's another one, product launch event. And once again, then I have some particular task. One of those, that is, I am Megan today. Here I have furniture rental for a launch event, and there could be other tasks as well. So how do I keep track of these as an individual? Well, through the Planner app, then I could go to my task on the left-hand side. And now it doesn't matter which plans these are part of, although certainly those are identified, but I'm able to also get a sense of what hasn't been started, what's in progress, and can also view just my own information from this particular perspective. And so this can be really helpful as well. That is because there may be tasks that really go across multiple projects. And so how can I view these in an easier way? So that's a quick look at the Planner app. Now we're going to circle back and view this again from within the team's environment. But that's something that you could get started with today and even build, for instance, a new plan. So let's go back to our waffle, our launcher, and explore then with list. Now, list is a little bit different. We might think of it more as a way to a little higher end, maybe for tracking items. That is, it's an evolution from SharePoint list, and it's now separated out into its own app, which is really where then what we're going to continue seeing with it. So rather than showing actions or tasks by individuals, list tends to be more for things like projects, like inventory or asset management, issue tracking, maybe travel plans or event itineraries. So even though our people can be involved in those and we might assign to do items for that, they tend to be a little bit different for the organization or for projects. So let's look at a few options here. Here I have design ideas. So you can think about this. This is really more like a spreadsheet if you want to think of it in that way. So the nice thing about the list is that all of these columns are customizable, just as if we were doing them in Excel. We can even export this to Excel if we wanted to. And we can add new columns to it. We can apply or assign different people to that particular item as well. I'll come back here and I'm just going to move back in my browser and let's look at our product list. So this is another example of a list. And in viewing this, then you can see we could add notes to this. And we also have the ability to sort things in different ways. Perhaps I want to sort it by the particular product line so that things are broken out into those particular categories. So these are all different possibilities with a list. At the top, we'll see various tools that are available here. And one, for instance, is to add it in the grid view. That means I can actually make notes on this. And I could just click into that column and say, something like, add options for other colors or whatever might be appropriate to that. And then at any time, I can exit that grid view. Now, how can we create a list? Well, you'll notice in the option here, I'll move back just so that we can see this list interface a little bit differently, because this would just be a new item here. And at the top here in Microsoft List, and by the way, once again, we could always go to our waffle or app launcher here, but here is new list. So if you want to explore lists, the nice thing about this is that this has a lot of different templates you can work from. So here is a new list. And notice that you could create something completely blank, very much like building an Excel spreadsheet. You could actually import an Excel worksheet into a list and decide that maybe this is how you want to centralize it. Because then everyone else in your organization that is working in the Microsoft 365 environment would also be able to work on this. I could create a list from an existing list, or I could build one from a template. And if you just want to practice and try this out, then try picking one of these templates just to see whether or not list makes sense for you. So I picked event itinerary, and I can see that it already has some, we'll say some filler data for me. And this looks good. This is, maybe we have an upcoming event, and I'll use the template. We can even pick the color that we want. So I'll pick this blue, even icons. Maybe it's a checklist that I want for this. And where do I want to save it? I could save it to a particular SharePoint site. So that would be an option for me. And I'll drop this into sales and marketing. So all of these things are possibility. That I might, in terms of how I build this. And I'll go ahead and create that list. So in building this then, notice that I have then the different, I have the columns for this, and I could go ahead and come in and start building what these different sessions are. All of these are possibilities. So let's go ahead here and move forward to look at some other possible options. But it's definitely something to explore. As mentioned, you can go into the grid view to be able to work with it. Each of these columns could be dragged left or right. And of course, you can add new columns to that as well. That's a quick look at our list options. Now to do. Once again, this is another Microsoft 365 application to do. And this is an interesting one because we're going to see more and more of this integration through our other tools. To do tracks personal tasks. So we'll move into this first of all. And so it tracks personal tasks that you have in lists and groups, anything that's been assigned to you, managed by you. The thing about it is that it also is now the task tool for Outlook online or web. And ultimately, it will morph into the task tool for Outlook for our desktop. That hasn't happened yet, but that's one of the things that we have with us. So in the to-do environment here, first of all, you have the option to take any of your upcoming tasks and put them into a view called My Day. That means that this may be as you are starting to build, say, what's a priority to me? I can drop that into My Day and not be overwhelmed by different things that might be available. Here I have planned. So these are tasks that are coming into us, for instance, from Planner. But they might also be options that are a flagged email. So here I have a flagged email. We'll look at that in a moment. So all of these have been created for me in one of those tools. We can create them directly as well in To Do. Now here's assigned to me. So here you can see some of the ones we looked at earlier. I created this one to draft the main deck. Here we have the main deck review. Here's that furniture rental. So these are for different projects, different plans, but now we have them sort of summarized in this one interface. And so that can be a helpful option for you. Flagged email. Well, this is actually coming from Outlook. And so in this case, then, if we have email in whether it's the web application or the desktop application for Outlook, if we flag it, it becomes then a to-do item as well. So let's look at that for a moment. And I'm coming into my desktop application for Outlook. Here is this message, then this email, and I want to review it. So earlier at a previous time, I had flagged this, which also creates it as a task. Now, keep in mind, I know we're switching between a lot of different applications. I'm in the desktop app. The desktop app right now has its own task component, and eventually that will evolve. So in my task, in the desktop app, that flagged email has also created a to-do item, but I could also create other tasks here too. So this is the flagged email. We'll switch back to what we were looking at earlier, and that is the to-do environment. And all of these then are ways for us to see what's coming up for us individually, but we could create our own task as well. So from To Do, then we have that option to create additional things. And so this might be a consideration, especially if you have struggled with where do you handle your to-do list? Because the nice thing about To Do is that it has a really good mobile app. And so that becomes an option where you might find it cumbersome to have a third-party application, and now it's not integrating maybe as well. And so with this, then you would be able to see those tasks, those to-do items also from your mobile devices. Let's look quickly at creating a task. Now I could just simply build a task, but I'd like to organize it a little bit more. So what I'll do here is I'm going to create a new list. Now keep in mind that all of our monthly webinars are recorded. And so that also means that this is going to be available in the K-Square Technologies YouTube channel. So if you want to review any of these elements, that's a great place to go back to. So here I'll create a list, if you will, a group, and I'll call this management. That is, it's not necessary, but that becomes a way to kind of organize these different tasks. And what I want to do is I'm going to add a task here, and that will be, I'll say, meet with Ellen on 2022 IT budget. And I could add that. Now I really want to do more with that. So I've selected it over on the right-hand side. Here I have my due date, and I'm going to go ahead and pick a date. That will be next Monday. I'll save. Okay. So these, I could add it as a reminder. It might be a repeating task, so that becomes another option. I can even categorize it as well. Let's go ahead. I'll add another task, and this will be to my staff performance reviews. Once again, I can add more detail to that. So this just hopefully gives you a little bit of a flavor of how these things can work. Now, what I'll do here is I'm going to take this task and drag it down into that list I built. Maybe, there we go. And we're just going to see, okay, so that is an option, but it is not working for us right now. So that's okay. So we've got those tasks, but know that you can organize them into these different lists as well. So I don't want to take all your time in working with that, but that becomes another possibility for us. So that's another choice for us. Here we go. Let's see if I can work with this. Okay, we'll move forward. We'll move on with that. But this is the wonder and sometimes confusion of live training with that. But let's go ahead then and look at a couple other possibilities here. So for instance, let me create another task here. And this will be a very simple one, and it might just be buy cookies. And I want that to be today, okay? So that is just a real basic task that I've created. So where do I see that? Well, let's go back to my Outlook desktop for just a moment and look at my task list. So notice then that I have each of these. This is one of the reasons why you might want to consider working with the To-Do app because of the integration directly with Outlook desktop. Now, if I had created the task, the item here, I also would see that in To-Do. So here's my flagged email. Here's my buy cookies, my things that are coming up next week. It does not show any of those tasks or those items that have been assigned through a plan. So that's one of the considerations that we see here. But here I have all of those tasks are shown here as well. That is what makes sense for you in terms of how you can view these without having distinctive programs that maybe are not integrated or talking to each other. Those are all possibilities. So I just definitely want you just to get a sense of that. I personally use the To-Do app as my task management because of the flexibility that it offers there. Well, let's look at this also from the team's perspective. That is, working with teams. If you are using Teams on a regular basis to organize your organization, to communicate with your employees, your team members, any of the people that might be part of different projects, then we also can work with these applications. And so that's what we're going to explore, is how can we see To-Do and Planner and even List through the Teams environment. And so with that, then the thing to know is that right now the application that works with these is called Task by Planner and To-Do. Now, eventually this application will likely be simply called Task. And in some government installations, it's just called Planner. So you can see that we're in some evolution with that, and some things can be sometimes a little bit confusing with that. But essentially we have a combination here. So I'm going to move first of all here to one of the teams that I'm part of, and that is in my alter ego here, Megan, and I'm in my general channel. And with this then, here is a tab that was added called Project Launch Event. So our default tabs in the channel. And if you're curious about or still trying to figure out Teams, we do have several webinars that are available in our YouTube channel on Teams. And here I have Post, Files, and Wiki. So Product Launch Event was added as a tab. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And so this is one that we saw earlier. And so with this then, this is simply showing this is a plan. This is a plan that could be created directly here in Teams and interacted with, where new tasks can be added. They can be marked as completed. So here, for instance, there's this furniture rental one that we saw earlier. So these are all different options and ways for us to view it. That is, rather than going through the app launcher, you may decide that Teams will be the portal for your list, for your plans, for your to-do items, which I'll share with you a little bit more about that as we continue. So how do we add a plan? I'll move to a different team. And in this case, this is simply a project that I worked with. We have some members of this team, and I'll move to then this design channel. So as I mentioned before, channels start off with a default of Post, Files, and Wiki. Well, I want to add an application. And in Teams, we can add a lot of different applications, OneNote and a lot of others. So I clicked on that plus. We can add different tools like PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Whiteboard. Here you'll see task by planner and to do. You'll see list. So I'm going to pick then my task. And if I had an existing plan from this team, I could basically build off of that. That would be one option. Got a little confused, so I'm going to go ahead and add that again. And I'll stick here. I want to create a new plan. So this particular plan then is, okay, this is my important project. I will post it to the channel. We'll create it. So you can see this, once again, the same environment. We have a bucket for call to do. Well, I can click into that and change that bucket to call it marketing, for instance. And now I'll add a task. And maybe that task is to draft marketing plan. So you can see how we could build off of these. I will assign it. All my team members are displayed here, and we'll simply add that task. So I could continue building these various buckets in terms of my various options. I'll add another bucket here, and I'll call this project management. And you could see that I could continue to do that. Not only then adding tasks in these containers, these buckets, these are basically, and have these boards. And so that's the view that we have in working with this. I'll add a task here. This will be for next month, and I'll assign that to Alan. And I could assign it to more than one person, by the way. I will add that task. So this is the idea then of interacting with Planner directly in Teams. Now, these plans would still be available through the Planner app, through our Microsoft 365 app launcher. But this is then where another way for us to interact with it. So if you're using Teams on an ongoing or regular basis, it might make more sense for this to be the portal for these types of options. Let's look a little bit more then at list, and then how do all of these tasks come together? That is, we can have a lot of different things that are happening with that. And that's one of the challenges when we have project and task management. So in my sales and marketing team, I have a products channel, and that particular channel has a list that was added to it. So as I showed you before, by clicking on the plus, we're able to add different applications. So here's that product list. Now I could have also built this as well from the Teams channel, if that's really where I want it to be available and want to work with this. But I could have also added this existing list to the Teams channel. So here's that product list that we saw before. That is, by clicking on the plus and choosing the application, in this case list, we could say, for instance, that I could now create a new list or add an existing list. So that would be an option for me in working with those. So if I had an existing list, you can see here, here's my event itinerary, here's that product list. Those are all possibilities. For right now, I'll simply click on the drop down here and remove that. I don't need that tab. Now, it doesn't delete the list. It simply is creating an interaction or a tab so that we can work with this. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea with that. So keep in mind, and just to hopefully kind of bring this together, your teams are created in existing SharePoint. So that becomes another way to explore the structure of these teams and channels. So we've looked at list and planner. Think of planner as the option you want to have for easy and simple project management. And list might be more helpful if you want a more customized experience. And it might not be that you're tracking information, like tracking inventory. And it may not be necessary then for assigning a particular task to people. It's a different type of project. But either one of these would be an option. And of course, you also could pin an Excel workbook that you have. So if you have a particular sheet and you prefer that, that becomes another option. But these could all reside or be available, accessible in Teams. So how do we get to these things in maybe an easier way? I mentioned before that this application is tasked by Planner and To Do. Well, instead of trying to jump between these different teams and trying to remember what channel they might be pinned in and so on, in our navigation or this rail on the left-hand side, here's the ... This is a way to add applications that you work with on a regular basis. So in this case, I'm going to click on this. And here is my task by Planner and To Do. And I'll add this as an application. Now, here's what's different about this. So this is the task in Teams. This is one of the options I mentioned. Before I leave this, I want to also share with you that what I would like to do is make sure that I can always get to this. So I'll right click on it now and pin it, meaning that I don't want to click on something else, for instance, my calendar, and then have this disappear. So by pinning it to the rail or the navigation bar, I can get to it. The nice thing about this is what this will do is going to summarize and bring together all of those tasks that you have. And it becomes a way for you to view that. So you can see here that these are different plans that where I am part of them, where I've been assigned a task. But by being able to view it this way, very much like what we saw with to do, I can then see them and decide, well, how do I want to view them? You know, what's been flagged as important? What's been assigned to me? What are some things that, you know, when is this? I can see this by the due date, you know, what's coming up and say, oh, I better take care of that right away. And so we are able to then, I could mark it as completed. Maybe I've already drafted that main deck, so I'll mark this as completed. So now it comes off of my list. It still shows up in the plan as a completed task. But this is then how we can see tasks in Teams, how we're able to view them, whether it's our shared plans, things that are assigned to us. All of these are possibilities. And as we saw before, then I could also add a task directly here. So this might be to plan the marketing team retreat. Where do I want to store this? Well, I'm going to put that in the sales and marketing product launch event. So I'm able to assign that. And when is that due? Well, that might be something that I want to do here. Oh, there we go. And I'm able to add that to my list. So that becomes another item, a task that I've created from this application. What have you seen that you find is helpful to you that you might start using? What would be useful to you? Share that in chat. Just, you know, what are the tools that maybe are new for you or would be helpful? And you know, what are you going to consider working with? Let me return back here for a moment. Once again, this is a summary here, but let's look then at our different applications. And so with this then, here I'm back and I'll refresh here. Here I have then my to-do display of my task. And so we can think of these as task in Outlook because this is how that would be displayed. So just to clarify what I mean by that, I'll go to my app launcher. And so if I open up Outlook, this is my web or browser. We see a couple things with that, right? So here's that flagged email. I'm able to work with those messages, certainly. Over on the left-hand side in my navigation, I not only have access to my different applications, but here's my calendar, my contacts, and here is my task, which are now from the web or browser version is to do. So it takes me right here as well. And then as we saw before, I could also go to my desktop and I would be able to also see those as well. But this is going to be more limited to us because these are simply tasks that we've created either in Outlook or in To Do. We're not seeing the integration of those tasks that may have been assigned through plans or that are part of the other applications that we've seen. So a couple things to keep in mind. Here we're looking at task and teams. So if you're looking at, say, which of these tools are the best for me? Use task and teams if you really want to prefer a more of a larger view of your task. You're able to see these in columns, and it also kind of separates things out by the different plans, the different places where they're stored, so that you might find that to be a much easier way to work with it, especially if you're already using Teams as kind of your front end and your portal for your communication within your organization. But if you have we'll say, a smaller group of tasks, or they're a little bit more flexible or informal, then you may find that the to-do application makes more sense, because this just kind of brings together all of your personal tasks in one place. And it's, these are things that don't have to be connected or might not be part of a plan or even a list with that. So this is a great way for managing your task on a day-to-day basis, just to help you build your personal schedule and to be able to track that, create priorities, favorite items, and you can still create recurrent tasks with this as well. So it's not that there's one thing that's better, or it's just what the application of that might be. I want to go back to my task here for just a moment. I'm going to select this. Now, I mentioned, for instance, the My Day. So here, I'm going to select this and I will add it to my day. I'm also haven't set up that meeting with Alan yet, so I'm going to add that to my day as well. So notice that this My Day is a way to kind of filter things down so that they're not as overwhelming, and it's a way then for you to be able to say, okay, this is what I have going on today, regardless of what the due date might be for that. So that's our look there. Hopefully that gives you a sense of what's possible with these Microsoft 365 applications, and expect them to evolve. They, as I mentioned, we're likely to see some name changes along the way, but they're going to evolve. But consider which of these applications might make the most sense for you. It might definitely be worth it just to explore or create a simple plan that you have within one of your team's channels, and to see how that can be a way to manage a small project that you might have coming up. So hopefully this is giving you a good sense of what the capabilities are, about what these Microsoft 365 applications can do for you. We continue to look for your feedback, of course, in terms of what will be helpful for you. So definitely make sure that you reach out to us in letting us know what you'd like to see for our future webinars series. So I do want to invite you to join us next month. That is, these webinars are offered on the second Tuesday of every month. And next month, we're going to move into Microsoft Excel, how to visually communicate data with charts and graphics. And then in 2022, there will be 2 webinars, part 1 and part 2, on Microsoft Excel essential functions. And we'll continue to introduce our schedule to you as well. But when we finish up this webinar, one of the things you'll see is a survey will pop up on the screen. This is your opportunity to let us know what topics you'd like to see in the future as we build out our webinar series for the coming year. Definitely always offer your feedback to us and let us know how we can be of help to you. So that's our look today at managing tasks and projects in Microsoft 365. How can we help you to be more productive? Please reach out to us for IT services and consulting to support you with your Microsoft technologies. Thanks for joining us today.